Hi, welcome to this ISO 22163 2023 IRIS Certification Revision 4 Railway Quality Management System Introduction Session. We are from Nucleus Consultant. We are into consulting training services on various management system. This is our portfolio for various standards. We are into rail sector for ISO 22163 IRIS requirements related consulting training auditing services. We are also into medical device industry for ISO 13485 and relevant services. We are also into telecom sector, and we are also into automotive for IATF 16949 and relevant standards. We are mainly into aviation, space and defense sector, where we do AS 9100 series of standard and AS 13100 aero engine specific QMS standards. And we are also into NADCAP accreditation consulting services. In today's session, we are going to discuss about what is this IRIS certification and what are all the changes which has recently happened in this IRIS certification. And we have ISO 22163 2023 new standard. What are the changes between the earlier version and the new version? That's what we are going to discuss. So let's start with about IRIS certification. IRIS certification revision 4 consists of two reference document. If an organization willing to go for IRIS certification, they is supposed to comply these two standard. One is ISO 22163:2023, which is an ISO standard, which talks about railway quality management system requirement. And IRIS has published a standard, IRIS Certification Performance Assessment 2023. And this standard talks about rules for achieving IRIS certification. If you are an organization who is planning to go for this IRIS certification, you need to comply both the document. This is some of the facts and figures which is available in IRIS website. As on December 23, you could see there are 2,270 companies are certified for IRIS. And there are multiple facts you could see in this. This is the overall IRIS governing structure. We have multiple rail operators and we have system integrators and there are equipment manufacturers. And UNIFI who creates rules for IRIS certification and ISO 22163. So ISO takes care of publication of this ISO 22163 and UNIFI laid down the rules for IRIS certification. So these are the two documents you're supposed to comply when you are planning to go for IRIS certification. There are some prerequisite. If a company wanted to get IRIS certificate, first they have to comply all these criteria. You should be a legal entity or belong to a corporation. You must have an autonomous rail quality management system. You must perform at least 3 of this certification activity for the eligible business category. If you look at ISO 22163 standard, there are a lot of requirements in that standard. If you look at class 8, it has requirements related to project management, requirements management, design and development, control of externally provided processes, products and services, production and service provision. There are a lot more other requirements, but IRIS certification rules clearly says at least you should have 3 of this activity in your site. And these are the business category who are eligible for IRIS certificate: rolling stock companies, signaling companies, infrastructure companies, maintenance companies, distributors, turnkey organization. Even if you're manufacturing testing and tools which goes to rail sector, you are eligible for this IRIS certificate. If you look at this table, it clearly says for which are the business category and which are the certification activities are applicable. In addition to that, there are two requirements which is always applicable irrespective of the business category you are. that is project management and requirements management. Based on the scope, what you are claim, maybe some organization are built to print company, for them design is not applicable, that's fine. But at least you should have three functions. One is project management, other one is requirement management, then purchasing, then production. So based on this, your eligibility for IRIS certification is verified. And one more thing here, we need to consider all activities, whatever you do in that particular location related to rail business, that needs to be included in the certification. There is no partial certification. You cannot apply IRIS for one product category where you have other product category related to rail business. If you don't want to cover them in IRIS certification, it is called as partial certification. Then you are not eligible for IRIS certificate. And the next important prerequisite is you must be have active of any one or more of this IRIS certification product scope. These are all the different product scope. Previously, IRIS certification have defined the product codes. Now that is simplified. You could see here components, systems, electrical, mechanical, guidance. These are all goes into railway vehicles. Then railway network, electronical, and integration. These are the multiple product scope right now available. If you are designing, manufacturing, or providing infrastructure, or even maintenance, or you are into turnkey or distributor of any one of this, you are eligible for this IRIS certificate. And one more thing you need to understand, all IRIS certificate are site specific. You need to ensure you have located a site in a location or multiple location with a physical address. These are all the eligibility for an organization who has to, who want to wish to get this IRIS certificate. And this is the recent document which was uploaded in IRIS site. You can visit IRIS site and you can get this information. They given some example, what are all covered under the scope and what are all the related products. This is not the complete list, but they try to come up with an example. For example, you are making wagons, freight wagons. So this is come under railway vehicles, right? And this is what the number they have assigned. Like this, each product code you could see here, railway network systems, where you are into traction systems or signaling systems, HVAC systems, right? Similar way, electronical, there are multiple alarms, antennas, GPS, SCADA. Those are all used in rail business. You can consider this particular product scope. Then mechanical product scope, your windows, frames, enclosures, gearboxes, those are all comes under this particular product scope. Then electrical product scope, wiring, compressors, batteries, and all. Then guidance systems, bogies, axles, and components. So this is the example given within IRIS portal where you can choose your product scope. Then as a organization, you need to register yourself in IRIS certification portal. There is one-time registration fee. You can contact IRIS and they will help you to get this registration process. Once you're registered, you can able to purchase IRIS certification audit tool. That is optional. There is no mandatory requirement you need to procure this audit tool. This is usually used by the organization who are willing to achieve higher level of scores like silver or gold. And then you can choose your certification body after you registered yourself in IRIS certification portal. Then you are initiating your certification process. And before that, you need to remember that you need to familiarize about all these requirements, what is written in IRIS Performance Assessment 2023 and what is written in ISO 22163. You need to establish those documents, implement those documents, maintain those documents, and you need to prove that it is effectively implemented in your organization. And one more thing you need to understand, there are 10 knockout questions, which was there in the earlier IRIS certification program, but here I could see some changes here. These are the knockout items and the relevant class numbers related to your ISO 22163. And these knockout items is mandatory in all audits. Either it is initial certification audit or surveillance audit or recertification audit. Every time certification body is supposed to verify this. These are all some of the unique requirement which is there in IRIS certification, where it talks about a stakeholder analysis in 4.2.2, then your risk management process, then your competence management, and your change control process, then requirements management, and how you are going to classify your suppliers, and how you are going to manage your special processes, and your first article inspection, then analysis and evaluation activities, then process review. These are all the 10 knockout questions, which is prerequisite for IRIS certification. Then IRIS listed, even not even IRIS, even ISO 22163 now has the annexure. There they have listed this 23 mandatory processes. So as your organization depends on the business category, what you eligible. Assume you are a signaling organization who are also into design and development activity. All these 23 processes are applicable to you. If you are a rolling stock organization, if you are not into design and development, maybe you can say based on the scope, this 8.3.1-1 is not applicable. You can say this 23 processes out of this 23, 22 is applicable because you are a build to print company and you can claim design is not applicable to you. So depends on your scope, depends on your business category, these mandatory processes are applicable to your organization. And IRIS certification is given based on these three assessment pillars. One is enablers evaluation, and other is performance evaluation. The other one is customer perception. Typically, evaluation is similar to your ISO 22163 requirement, but here the each requirement is evaluated based on a maturity level. IRIS audit tool gives you some of the additional requirement if you want to achieve qualified, optimized requirement. Those are all available in IRIS audit tool. In addition to that, you need to prove your process performance. It is not just enough to prove that you are fulfilling the processes. You also prove that your process is effective. So IRIS audit tool has a separate methodology. It is called as peer process effectiveness assessment report. Through that, they were evaluating your process, how effective your process is, how effectively you are complying your performance indicators. And there is another important pillar, customer perception. There are different indicators which is linked to customer perception that also assessed during your IRIS audit. So based on this, scoring will be given, and based on the outcome of scoring, you are eligible to get bronze, silver, or gold. So this is what some of the overview of IRIS certification, which I could able to cover in this couple of minutes. So let's move to the next session. What is this Railway Quality Management System, ISO 22163? So this is an ISO standard which is made for rail sector, how to apply ISO 9001 2015, and this is called as Railway Quality Management System. If you look at the earlier version of ISO TS22163, that was a technical specification. Now the technical specification became a standard. That's what you could see. It is called as first edition. And ISO 22163 includes all the requirement of ISO 9000 and 2015 and plus supplemental requirement, which is specific to rail businesses. The key areas like project management, change management, configuration management, competency management, there are a lot of additional requirement they have added with respect to your existing ISO 9001. If you look at this standard, it covers entire life cycle of rail businesses. It starts from bidding activity, your design and development activity, production activity, even post-production activity, all are covered under this particular standard. And if you look at the standard structure, There are some requirement you could see within the box. There are some requirement you could see outside of box. So whatever you see within the box, those are all ISO 9001 requirement. Whatever you see outside the box, those are all railway quality management system industry specific requirement. And various places in the standard you could see safety word, but remember the safety is not occupational health and safety. This safety is more related to product safety. And if you look at the standard, even we discussed in the previous section, there are 23 mandatory processes required by IRIS and also required by ISO 22163. And these processes can be documented in a single processes, or you can combine this with other processes, or even split these processes based on your organization system and your organizational culture and what type of business you are into. And if you look at the scope of ISO 22163, they made it very clear this time you can apply this standard throughout the supply chain of rail sector and even relevant industrial related products. The goal of the standard is focused towards continual improvement, and it emphasizes defect prevention and defect reduction across the supply chain. And if you have this QMS, it will enhance and you can sustain product quality, including this product safety aspects. That's the scope of the new standard ISO 22163/2023. And this is the picture you could see the differences between ISO 9001 2015 and this ISO 22163/2023. Whatever you see in green color, those are all ISO 9001 requirement. And whatever you see red color, those are all ISO 22163 mandatory requirement, shall requirement. And whatever you could see in blue color, those are all ISO 22163 optional requirement. Those are all should requirement. So now you could compare that what are the lot of additional requirement to compare your existing ISO 9001. So that is what all about this particular session. Now let's move to some of the key changes what you can see in this new standard ISO 22163/2023. Since this is a short video series, I will not go through each and every clauses. I would like to give you some overview what are the key changes. If you are new to this particular IRIS standard, I would recommend you can watch our previous recorded session where we discussed a lot about ISO 22163. That's the earlier version of the standard. So let's see what are the key changes here. If you look at the structure of standard, they follow similar high-level structure, an Excel of all management system, class 1 to 10. 1 talks about the scope, 2 talks about the normative references, and 3 talks about terms and definition, and 4 talks about context of the organization, 5 talks about leadership, and 6 talks about planning, and 7 talks about support, and 8 talks about operation, and 9 talks about performance evaluation, and 10 talks about improvement. Now, IRIS standard also recommended mandatory processes. So what ISO 22163 did this time is they are also added an annexure. Annexure A talks about list of processes where you could see the 23 mandatory processes and the optional processes. And they have included this time on Annexure B, it talks about different concepts of requirements for product and services. It looks like a mind map. First time I could see a mind map in a management system where they have tried to connect the different terminologies what they are using related to the word requirements. When you see requirements, you have technical requirement, non-technical requirement. Even within technical, you have functional and non-functional, right? So they try to connect what are these different words and what are the concept of these requirements. That's what they try to address in Annexure B. And Annexure C is another important requirement they have added this time. Previously, the ISO 22163 standard talks about key performance indicator. And if you look at the new standard, they talks about key performance indicator as well as performance indicator. So this annexure C talks about the performance indicator. And this is the differences between a performance indicator and key performance indicator. Even a new definition has been added in section 3. If we look at here, the one is like your performance indicator as per your ISO 9001. If you look at ISO 9001 4.4.1, they talks about a performance indicator. And you look at this here, the circle 2, this is more specific to performance indicator, specific to supplemental requirement of ISO 22163. What we could say, the supplemental ISO 22163 is nothing but railway quality management system specific performance indicator. For example, you have a configuration management, and you have change management, and you have project management. Those are all ISO 22163 specific requirements. If you have performance indicator in those supplemental classes, those are all class called as performance indicator related to ISO 22163. And if you look at the circle 3, that's a key performance indicator, again, that is specific to railway quality management system. The difference between performance indicator and key performance indicator is, key performance indicator is also a performance indicator, but those key performance indicators are determined by the top management, which is business critical or which is critical to your product. So those all come from your top management. So this ISO 22163 talks about both KPI and performance indicator as per ISO 22163 and performance indicator as per your ISO 9001. So this is one change they have introduced in this new version. And if you look at class 4, there are few changes. There is a requirement business plan in the earlier version of ISO 22163. Now that the business plan is moved into 4.1.1. They considered it as part of your strategic direction. You must consider your business planning. So there is a shift from the earlier version of this requirement, and they have moved into context of the organization. There is one big change I could see in class 4. And there is one more additional requirement here I would like to add, that is 4.1.2. Social responsibility. Now ISO 22163 talks about you should consider social responsibility principle. And remember, it is not a shall requirement, it is a should requirement, which means it is an optional requirement. And they have mentioned ISO 26,000 in the note. When you consider social responsibility principle, you can refer this ISO 26,000. This is one change you could see in class 4.1. And there is one more new requirement they have added, 4.3.1. As an organization, you must also determine the boundaries and applicability of specific requirement of your railway quality management system. If you feel you are not into product design, or your customer contract doesn't calls for RAMs or LCC, you can consider that what is not applicable or what is applicable, right? That is one additional requirement they have added. In class 5, there is a small change. Previously, you might have noticed in ISO TS 22163, there is a separate clause, supplemental clause on product safety. Now they have merged along with the 5.2 policy. So they have considered the safety aspects as part of 5.2.3 quality policy. Remember, here the safety aspect means product safety. And class 6, there are few changes. The one change what I would like to highlight here is the wordings of this particular class 6.1.4. In previous version of ISO TS 22163, this is called as contingency planning. Now they have reworded this as business continuity, which means it talks about entire business continuity. Even they have referred ISO standard for this. And look at some of the changes in class 7. There is one big change. If you look at the earlier version of the standard, they are referring budget planning. Now that has been changed into resource planning. Previous standard talks about budget planning, approval, and control. And the new version here, they are talking about resources. When you say resources, which includes all, of course, budget is part of this, but they try to cover resource planning, all resources we need to consider while providing the budgeting or when you are planning your quality management system. And another additional requirement, what they have added is 7.4 communication. This is not a shall requirement, it is a should requirement. You must have a process for internal external communication related to this railway quality management system. So these are some of the changes we could see in the new version in class 7. In class 8, there are a lot of changes, but I would like to highlight some of the key changes here. Uh, there is one change we could notice in 811 and 814. In 811, there is a requirement innovation management in the earlier version, maybe which is last clause in section 8. Now they have moved it here under 8111. 8.1.1.1, they have moved this innovation management. And it is not a shall requirement, it is a should requirement. In project management, there is a slight changes. Previously, there is a requirement called as project integration management that they have removed it, and they have added one more requirement now, project review management. And within this project management, there are a few minor changes. Maybe if you have a time, I would post a separate video specifically for project management. Then there is a big change with respect to the approach. Previous, there is separate class for configuration management and a separate class for change control. Now they have merged it under 8.1.4. There is a big change I could see here. And there is no major changes in section 8.2. And similar way, there is no major change I could see in class number 8.3. And same way in control of EPPS, there is no big change in this class 8.4 to compare the earlier version of the standard to the current version. And 8.5 also, there is no big surprise here. Whatever there, they have made few corrections and some interpretations have now brought with clear approach. There is no big surprise in this section. But here I could see one change. Previously, life cycle costing is mentioned as shall requirement, but this new version they mentioned is as a should requirement. Depends on your customer contractual requirement or what type of business you are, what type of business category you are. This life cycle costing may applicable to your organization. That's one change I could see here. And FAI, there is no big surprise here. There is no big change. And similar way, obsolescence management also, there is no change. So these are all the things we could see in class 8. And class 9, of course, the big change is the performance indicator. Previously, it is key performance indicator. Now it is performance indicator. There is one change we could see in class 9. And class 10, there is no big change. So this is what the final summary of this 23 mandatory processes, which is given in the annexure to your ISO 22163. And these are all the optional processes. Okay, so that's what I would like to address in this short video. So if you have next time, maybe we will see some with more examples, right? So thank you for your time and attention. Hope you enjoyed this session. Thank you.